Hello friends, my name is Manoj Biswas and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Here I talk about some important and interesting topics in science and mathematics and perform some indoor and outdoor activities related to them. You can check the link of all those activities in the description. My today's topic is reflex action. As a living being, we need to always interact with the environment, and our environment is not a static one. Its physical, chemical and biological aspects are constantly changing, and accordingly our body needs to respond to those changes to maintain a steady state in our body, and that maintenance of the steady state in our body is called homeostasis. To understand the phenomena, first we have to understand the meaning of a stimulus. As I have already told you that the environment is constantly changing and our body needs to respond to those changes, and that gives you the concept of stimulus, because that change can be a change in the intensity of the light that you are receiving. That change may be a dust particle entering into your nose. That change may be your fingertips is touching a hot object like a candle. So that is called a stimulus. And whenever there is a stimulus, our body has to respond. And how the response is given by the body? It is given through the unit of the nervous system called neuron. So a neuron has a cell body. The outside of the neuron in a normal state is positively charged due to the presence of excessive amount of sodium plus ion, but the inside of the neuron at that particular situation is negatively charged, and you can see that there is a potential difference between the outside and the inside neuron, and this state of the neuron is called polarization. Whenever there is a stimulus, that will make the membrane of the neuron semi-permeable, and as a result the sodium plus ions will now start to enter inside the neuron, and because of their entry, the inside of the neuron in this portion will become positively charged, and the absence of sodium plus ion outside of the neuron will give negative charge, and this is called depolarization. And this repeated polarization and depolarization create a constant potential difference between the outside and the inside of the neuron, and that makes an electrical impulse to develop and advance through the neuron. As it starts from the receptor in our skin, then it goes to the nervous system, maybe to the spinal cord or to the brain, and then comes back to the effectors such as the muscles in our arm, in our legs and all. So let us now discuss about the reflex action in detail. Our body responds to various type of stimuli every day. Majority of them are controlled by the brain after thinking, after calculation, after computation, after memory searching, and that's why the brain is known as the central nervous system. But there are some actions which we need to take in a quick succession, and those actions are called reflex action. And these actions are not controlled by the brain, but they are controlled by the spinal cord. So those actions which are controlled by the spinal cord without involving the brain, without thinking, are known as reflex actions. And some of the reflex action we can understand from these small video clips. The first one is sneezing. Sneezing is one of the most common reflex action that all of us experience almost every day. Sometimes what happens, maybe a dust particle or maybe a small flying insect enter into your nose, and if they go deep inside the respiratory system, they can cause some serious damage. So our body respond to this type of situation. The nose muscles receives the stimulus, which is a touch in this case, with the help of the sensory receptor, and that stimulus is converted into an electrical impulse, and that electrical impulse goes to the spinal cord, not to the brain, and the spinal cord interprets the situation and decides and gives order to the nose muscles to quickly contract and relax so that the dust particle and the flying insect, whatever it is, can be ejected out of the system and safeguard our respiratory system. The second reflex action is change in the intensity of light. Now imagine that you are entering from a bright sunny area into a dark room like a theater hall. So for first few seconds you do not see the things in your surrounding because your eyes has to readjust to that situation of the light. So what it does, it increases the aperture of the pupil, and by increasing the aperture of the pupil, it let more light to enter inside the eyes to make the things visible around us, and that is a reflex action. And then when you are coming out of that dark room into the bright sunny area again, the eyes again had to readjust, and therefore it decreases the diameter of the pupil so that it can stop the entry of the light and make the things visible for us comfortably. The third reflex action is the movement of the knees when something hard strikes it. You can see in this video that when you strike something hard with your knees, then you will see the leg movement, that is called a knee reflex. And there are so many other reflex actions that come across in our everyday life. When you are riding in our bike or maybe in a car at a certain high speed, and suddenly something comes in your way, maybe an animal, maybe a small kid, then you don't have time to think. You can't give this work to the brain to think, interpret, compute, because that will take a long time. So what it does, the spinal cord comes into play. The spinal cord will interpret the situation and gives the order to the leg muscles quickly to apply the brakes and avoid that accidental situation. Okay, now let us understand two more topics. One is called reflex arc and second is called reaction time. Say you happen to touch a hot object such as a hot plate or maybe a flame of candle, then you will notice that your hand is withdrawn, and this is called a reflex action. What happens during this action? First, in this case, the stimulus is heat, and this heat is received by your fingertip, which is the receptor organ, and then the stimulus is converted into an electrical impulse, and that electrical impulse proceed towards the spinal cord with the help of sensory neuron. Remember, sensory neuron is a single cell starting from your fingertip and reaching up to your spinal cord. The spinal cord will receive the impulse, it will interpret the impulse, and it will take necessary action which will be delivered to the effector muscle with the help of a motor neuron. So the impulse will now travel from the spinal cord up to the effector muscle. The effector muscle will contract itself and it will pull the hand backward. And these two neurons, the sensory neuron and the motor neuron, are connected by a relay neuron or an interneuron. And this whole path, the entire path starting from here, that means the sensory neuron and then the relay neuron and then the motor neuron together is called reflex arc. Now what is reaction time? Reaction time is the time taken by this nervous system to react to a particular stimulus. Usually the reaction time for a normal human being of an average age is 250 milliseconds, and that is equal to 250 upon 1000 seconds, and that is equal to 1/4 of a second. It means a normal human being will respond to a stimulus in around 1/4 of a second. But what happens when a person consumes alcohol? We know alcohol badly affects the nervous system, especially the reaction time. So what happens when a person is alcoholic? His reaction time will invariably increase. It means he will react to a stimulus very late. And that is a clear evidence why accidents are caused when a driver consumes alcohol. Because of the consumption of alcohol, the reaction time of that driver will increase, and that means he will react late, and that may result into some serious accident, as it happens every now and then, especially in the hilly areas where the reaction time matters a lot. So here we come to the end of this video and hope you have liked it. Many more such interesting videos are coming up. See you in my next video. Until then, goodbye.